Member for Chilliwack, Kent.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is an honor to rise and speak to the speech from the throne, and I appreciate hearing what others have been saying, whether I was watching earlier or just now, and it has definitely inspired me. So I'll be speaking not only to the speech from the throne, but to the responses to the speech from the throne, because I feel like there's a lot that needs to be canvassed here, and so I'm going to try to fit it all in, but so that I don't miss it, I do want to take just a moment and speak about the riding of Chilliwack, Kent, which I have the very distinct honor of representing, and for those who are not sure, it covers everything Cultus Lake, the Sardis side of Chilliwack, most of it, Agassiz, which is a district of Kent, Harrison Hot Springs, Harrison Mills, Popcombe, everything in between. It's a really diverse riding, and so I have the distinct pleasure of hearing from a diverse group of constituents, rural as well as those who would consider themselves definitely not rural. Maybe they don't know how to define it, but it's not rural. We have an amazing hospital, Chilliwack General Hospital. We have several clinics. We have hardworking doctors. We have some amazing schools, the University of the Fraser Valley. There was a lot that I heard in this throne speech that I'm excited to canvass with constituents, with folks back in Chilliwack, Kent. But I think that the best thing that I heard, the overwhelming feeling that I received, that I had from the throne speech, was that it acknowledged what British Columbians already know. There were, the previous speaker mentioned that, you know, there were no surprises. British Columbians already knew everything that was spoken about in the throne speech. Good. Because that's what is important to British Columbians. That is what is on their minds right now. I know in Chilliwack, Kent, that's what I'm hearing from people. So I thought it good that there were no huge surprises, because we need to be doing the work. Our government needs to be doing the work on the things that are most important to British Columbians. And so that's what we heard in the throne speech. I want to take just a minute, because I was a little bit taken aback by some of the comments made about how it wasn't an exciting throne speech. I understand that the intent was not, you know, this is not entertainment. We know that. This is the important work and action that our premier, that our government is committed to getting done. And so not entertainment, but has to be a reflection of what is most important and what is needed by British Columbians, what we're hearing every day in our offices, from our neighbors, from our friends. It wasn't, I think the comment was a laundry list, but it was a list. There's a lot of need right now. One of the things that makes me so confident when I speak with people, one of the things that makes it so easy to hear the good and the bad and the struggle and the celebration, is that this government is not afraid of the challenges, of the tackles. To tackle it. We understand things are harder than ever right now for people. We understand that we need to help people with costs, and the throne speech addressed that. We understand how critical it is to tackle the enormous issue of the housing crisis, the enormous, heartbreaking issue around toxic drugs and the opioid crisis. We understand how important it is to make our communities safer, because these are communities that we live in and that we love. And I don't think any member of this House, no matter where their seat is, doesn't love their community, because this work, this is big work. This is hard work. And we do it because we love our communities. Fighting climate change and building an economy that works for everyone, an economy that doesn't leave anybody out. We know that there have been dramatic changes. And our partnerships with Indigenous peoples, and making sure that we are doing the work and taking the next steps in reconciliation, and that things are not being overlooked. Things aren't being left out. this is a list. And within that list, there were other lists. There's a lot of different actions that are required, and the throne speech took the time to be more specific. So was it exciting? Did it blow people's socks off? I read the same Twitter that everybody else did. I saw the articles. I followed the thread, because we all do. I didn't read the comments. That was the first piece of advice I got after winning the seat, and I try to follow it. But I saw that some people's opinion was that it was underwhelming. And I understand that we might, as human beings, want things to be exciting because things are hard. They are hard. And the throne speech was serious because there's serious business to get down to. One of the things that helps me in this job, and it's helped me in previous roles. Previously, Mr. Speaker, I don't know if you know this, I was a community advocate. I had the distinct benefit and pleasure and privilege of working with self-advocates and individuals with intellectual disabilities. I also had the distinct honor of supporting victims of crime. And so part of my role there was actually being there on the worst day of people's lives. It was not an easy role. The other part of my job was incredibly rewarding because I was able to teach and learn from, and I was able to support people in accessing community and accessing the things they need. But a very key part of both of those roles was trying to explain and teach complexity in a way that could be taken in bite-sized pieces of information. And this actually helped me as a parent as well. I'm also now a parent of teenagers. I became a parent 17 years ago, 11 months. So I'm almost the parent of one adult. But it was a while ago and things were very hard. And I've also learned how to break it down for my kids. And they're asking questions now because one is approaching voting age, the other one is maybe a little bit jealous that they're not at this point yet, but they're prepping. They're making decisions about their future, and they're making part of those decisions are where they are going to live and what are the priorities of the leaders that they're watching. Those might be official leaders that maybe are elected or appointed, maybe unofficial leaders in their peer groups, but leaders nonetheless. And one of the hardest things before I took this position and since has been explaining why the adults are saying the things that they're saying. Why can we stand in a room where two people will say opposite things? One will say it's great and one will say it's not. And that's a hard thing to teach young kids. And when I talk about our work here, I understand that there are different perspectives because there are different ideas. And it's like I said a minute ago, Honorable Speaker, I don't doubt, regardless of any of the comments made so far about the speech or to be made, I do not doubt that everybody here wants to take care of their communities. It's what that looks like, what that needs to look like, and those differences. And I think that the throne speech, in particular, because it was specific, maybe not exciting, I think that it really speaks to the multifaceted way that we have to address the things that are most critical to British Columbians right now. One example that was given was around the uncertainty. We know economists are predicting a global slowdown. So what are we doing? How are we going to be, this was a line from the throne speech I really liked, stable, secure, stronger, and more sustainable? How are we going to achieve that? Well, we're not going to achieve that by cutting critical core services. We're not going to do that by doing something exciting that might have made a nice headline yesterday rather than it not being exciting in some people's view. What we're talking about here is the real work, the hard work that our government has committed to, that is a continuation in many cases of the work that we've already done. When we talk about things like healthcare, when we talk about bringing people back so that they receive good pay, mostly women, so that they know what they can count on, so that they know that they're valued as much as they are. When we talk about making sure that we have a pathway so that people who have training to be healthcare practitioners in our system have a pathway to get there quicker because they want to work in healthcare in British Columbia. When we talk about the investments we're making in primary care centers, when we talk about a new model for paying family doctors, when we talk about all of the things that we've learned during COVID, all of the things that we've learned, even since we've last called the people to have their voices heard about who sits in this room. We have learned so much about how things can be done. We've learned so much about what's possible. And I think, at least when I listen to my constituents, the priorities even since then have changed so much. So every time this government learns more from the people about what's happening in real time, it's reflected in the work that we're doing. There are changes, but we're not reinventing anything. British Columbians, of course, are telling us that they need help with costs, that housing is an issue, that we need to strengthen public health care, that we need to make our communities safer. They're telling us that climate change is important, that reconciliation is important. These are not new themes because these continue to be the values and the things that are important to the British Columbians who elected us and who put us here. So the fact that our government continues to be focused on these things, albeit with additional consultation and with directions and investments and new ideas that might be different, not necessarily, that should not be a surprise, and I'm sorry that it's not exciting. It's exciting to me. It's exciting to me because the work is continuing. I feel very privileged to be part of continuing work. There's mention in here about additional ways where we're going to be addressing, for example, gender equity. I became a mother during a time where I don't even know. I was too busy being a brand new mother, having just created a human, I suppose, to read I was not reading the news. I was not watching Question Period. But there was no conversation about childcare. There just wasn't any. I made very significant choices about my career. In this throne speech, when we talk about continuing the work, when we talk about acknowledging how far we've come, while also saying we still have so much further to go. What would be more exciting? If we pretended like we were there? This is not a quick fix. It was not a quick cause. For example, childcare. And I'm not going to say 16 long years in any other way than to say it took hundreds of years. It took human history, depending on your culture, to get us to the position where I don't now, but ideally my daughter, the work we're doing right now, should she choose to be a parent, my son, should they choose to be a parent, will not have to choose between taking care of their child or working. This is the work we're continuing. I think that's exciting. That's a different choice than I had. And I am incredibly privileged and will recognize that right now because I had people around me who could support. But it was still a choice and there was still sacrifice. So continuing the work on the topics that British Columbians tell us are important to them and are critical to them, that is exciting. Maybe I don't know, I can say it in a different tone that sounds more exciting, but the work itself is what's happening. I also want to acknowledge that it's important to understand the tone. We are not celebrating that we have vanquished COVID, that we have vanquished any issues around climate change. There is no celebration about what's happening on our streets. For myself in Chilliwack, Kent, the opioid crisis is often quite hidden. It's happening in basements and dens when people get home from work alone while their families might be sleeping down the hall. There's no excitement there. There's a lot of work to do. It's happening when youth are struggling. It's happening when the stigma around it is a barrier. That's where we're doing the work. Reduce the stigma, get the information out, all of the pillars, all of the facets that we can attack this together. Nobody needs more fear. Nobody needs to be told that this thing that we have heard and learned from our community and those who have lived experience, these things that our premier is committed to, that he's taking action on immediately, nobody needs to hear that, you know what, that probably, maybe, in my opinion, wouldn't work. That's not helpful to this fight. It will not get us to that place where we can look back and say, okay, we're going to be okay. So many people have been lost. So I'm sorry it's not exciting. There's a lot of work that's been done. There are lives that have been saved, but there's so much work left to do. This acknowledges that. We're seeing increased activity around climate. In Chilliwack, Kent, I know we talk about in the Fraser Valley the floods and the heartbreak and the loss and all of the work and the incredible community that rallied and took care of each other. And the pictures, even thinking about them, give me chills. In Chilliwack, Kent, Honourable Speaker, a large part of that was actually land movement rather than the flooding, where the hillsides or the land moved in such a way that it challenged or compromised or even devastated. We know near Seabird Island, in the District of Kent, there was a landslide that trapped people overnight. The military had to come in with helicopters and pluck them off the roofs of their cars. I know that in the Chilliwack River Valley, there was land movement. In Columbia Valley, there was land movement. In District of Kent, there was land movement. In Harrison Hot Spring, or near Harrison Hot Springs, there was land movement. It's changed people's lives. That was a climate, an atmospheric river. We talk about these things becoming more frequently, so we can't celebrate that either. That would have been exciting, but we can acknowledge the work that has been done so far and the continued commitment to something that is a long-term problem, which is exactly what the throne speech did. Helping people with costs, we listed, or it was listed in the throne speech, some of the ways that we've helped people with cost. But because of my connection and community, because of the range of people that I have the honor of having in my life to keep me aware and informed of a variety of things from a variety of perspectives, because I've been really, really lucky to have a lot of different kinds of people in my life. I've seen people who have done great, who are now struggling, but who up until they're going to the grocery store recently, were okay. They weren't necessarily worried if they could make it. That's changed. And we know that we're helping people with these costs, we're helping families, we're helping seniors. And on my social media, for example, whenever I post about something to do with costs, what I get is a question about, well, what about, I might say, here's something for families. Families will receive this, 85% of families, or British Columbians, will benefit. And then I see, what about seniors? Well, one of the really fantastic things, and we talk about helping people with costs in the throne speech, but there's already been a lot of work done, is that we have a webpage that shows people what they qualify for, what might be available for them, all about eligibility, if it wasn't automatically deposited into their bank account, because a lot of that happened. But we need to continue. You don't solve it with one solution. This wasn't an issue with keeping money in people's pockets for one day. This is a commitment from our government, from our premier, to take action, to continue taking action, to help people with the cost of living, with affordability, keeping money in their pockets in a continuous way, so that tomorrow, next month, is less of a worry than yesterday. When we talk about the housing crisis, I hear a lot about how things aren't solved yet. And that makes sense, because if it was solved, we wouldn't be talking about the housing crisis. We would be talking about something else. So the work being done as more and more people, as record numbers of British Columbians, or of people actually, they're British Columbians now, come to British Columbia. As they come to British Columbia because it is an amazing place to live, because it does have supports for people, because there are opportunities here. We have our unemployment rate shows you how much opportunity there is here. As we build more, as we build our public healthcare system, as we build our roads, as we build our transportation, as we have committed to and invested in infrastructure, there are jobs here. Family supporting jobs. So as we have more and more British Columbians, that will make our province just that much stronger. It is critical, and I feel like the throne speech addresses it, to understand that we may be moving into, like I said, economists are predicting a global slowdown. So we need to make sure that we don't have short-term thinking. That is what this throne speech is outlining. Exciting? Exciting enough for Twitter to say, wow, that was exciting? No. But it's because it's long-term issues and long-term thinking. We can make a list of things that the throne speech doesn't include, and I'm sure that will happen. But the things it does include talk about how we build a stronger tomorrow. It's not a victory lap, because there are still things that we need to be working on that are very significant. They're changing, I think, our identity. I was talking to somebody the other day, and they said to me, I don't know how to talk to people in person anymore. They were having a disagreement, probably no more serious than a regular disagreement, but it was about politics. It was actually, I think, about around COVID and housing, which was an interesting combination. They said, I don't know how to talk to people in person anymore because it's been so long since I've had to. And they had described how they were in a group situation and people were talking over each other and it was just too much. And they said, I was never like that before. I don't know what happened. I don't know how to get used to it again. Because things have changed. Who they are when they show up in the world has changed, and what that world looks like has changed. And this throne speech acknowledges that where we were 5 years ago, 6 years ago, is different than where we are today, because our world has changed. I am actually hearing from human beings that they don't know how to speak to other human beings sometimes anymore. And I think that that's kind of valid, because I watched the kids go back to school, and I saw how that social situation had changed. The thing I hope doesn't change, and the thing that is really required if we want to have the best ideas and the best work as we continue the actions necessary to address these important issues that British Columbians have told us are top of mind, is we will need ideas to come together. We will need to be able to speak to each other in person or directly. We will need to understand how to socialize. I think that there has been a lot of inputs into our society that are outside of our control. That they impact the issues that we addressed in the throne speech. I think that there are issues from other jurisdictions politically that trickle in. I think that there are attitudes or permissions that trickle in. And I think one of the worst things that's trickled in, one of the worst things that it won't interrupt our government getting this work done for British Columbians, but it's not going to make it easier, is this fear. And not the fear that comes with with the issues, but the fear that comes with the what if extrapolated 15 times down the road and then followed up by that'll never work. This throne speech may not be exciting, but what it was a demonstration, an outline, I suppose, of how we will continue the work. And the goal is what is important here. The goal is stable, secure, stronger, and more sustainable. That is a big goal, and there are, like I've canvassed a little bit, there are a lot of topics that we can address, but the goal is the same in all those topics. When it comes to helping with people with costs, stable, secure, stronger, sustainable. When it comes to tackling the housing crisis, regardless of income bracket, regardless of age, stable, secure, stronger, sustainable. When it comes to strengthening our public healthcare system, when we know that it is not outside of conversations happening around this country, sometimes around this neighborhood, about privatization, what we need in our public healthcare is stable, secure, stronger, and sustainable. Making our community safer, this throne speech did outline actions, not only that have been taken, but that would be stable, secure, stronger, sustainable. Fighting climate change and building an economy that includes everyone and supports the vision of where we need to be. Stable, secure, stronger, and sustainable. And in our partnerships with Indigenous peoples, I can't talk about this morning. Stable, secure, stronger, and more sustainable. And in my last 2 minutes, I'm just going to highlight a couple things in Chilliwack, Kent around this last point, these partnerships with Indigenous people. I was honored to be part of a celebration with Chiacton First Nation in Chilliwack, Kent, because this government partnered, and we partnered to build 23 homes on reserve with Chiacton First Nation. What that meant, according to the chief, people are coming home. And these communities are able to want to, again, have multiple generations, all of that support. I've also, to this last point, in my last minute and 33 seconds, been able to celebrate with St'elas First Nation. There was an amazing, historic agreement made, and the goals and the vision of that community are inspiring. I can't wait. There's going to be more celebrations with them. That community as well, people are coming home. That's how it was described to me by Chief Leon. People are coming home. That's fantastic. So, with 1 minute left, what the throne speech does address is exactly the things that British Columbians have been telling us, and that's why it's not a surprise, nor should it be. And what it's talking about is how we are going to continue addressing those issues that are most important, how our government and our premier are going to continue taking action with the goal of stable, secure, stronger, and sustainable. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.